the exact system to go from 0 to 99% comprehension in Japanese this year. In this video I'll show you everything I have done so far in these 18 months to have a 99% of comprehension in almost every piece of content I watch, including very difficult light novels like Re:Zero. I will also touch through this bit part of the mindset I usually use to be able to accomplish this. I'm Ivan, Spanish native with 3+ years in English, Japanese for 18 months, and as an athlete, I help language learners who struggle with discipline. The first two alphabets of Japanese are Hiragana and Katakana. Hiragana is the primary alphabet used for native words, phonetic words, and also to talk with children that don't know that much kanji, but that's a nuance you don't have to worry about now. Then we have Katakana, which is the alphabet used for keywords like places, names, and foreign words like restaurant, ikoru, and literally thousands of words that come from English. You can pretty much learn Hiragana and Katakana in like 3 hours if I'm being honest. There's not really any special trick to it. You can literally just go and study the traditional way with mnemonics and writing every Hiragana and Katakana you see like 20 times, and you'll end up learning them with ease. Of course, you can spend whatever time you want. It's not really necessary to learn them in 3 hours. Now, if you ask me which one of these two I will spend more time with, it will definitely be Katakana. For me, it was even more difficult to recognize sometimes than kanjis, at the start of course, so I think you should spend a bit more time with it. This doesn't mean that you want to learn Katakana first. It is way more worth it to learn Hiragana first and then Katakana, but maybe you want to spend a bit more time during Katakana. In terms of the resources you'll be using, just use whatever. Pretty much every resource works perfectly, since literally you will be just memorizing like crazy. In the description I'll leave some of them. Kanjis are these characters that you can see right here. I know that they seem really scary, but believe me, they are way easier than you think. So there's lots of ways of going through kanjis. The particular way in which I'm going to teach you how to memorize them is nothing special. We'll be literally just learning vocabulary and going to immerse as soon as possible. You will see lots, and when I say lots, I mean lots of people saying that you shouldn't be immersing that quickly. So that's like 5 or 10 days in, because that's the thing that didn't work for them. And honestly, I've changed my opinion on this. Basically, this is the way in which you will not waste any time. I've seen it with 3 of the members in my community. They basically did not study almost any grammar. They also didn't try to study kanjis isolated to recognize them. They studied vocabulary and then went straight into immersion as soon as possible. In fact, in this way you'll probably be learning kanjis even more efficient than if you were to study kanjis isolated without doing immersion. Basically what you'll do is study your 50 to 60 pieces of vocabulary and then go and do 1 or 2 hours of immersion. At the start, there's actually not that much necessity of putting lots of hours, so you're fine with that. Why should you not focus on pure grammar study at first? So my first argument for this is that you will literally not remember the grammar piece when you go and do immersion. Believe me, I've done this. So in the first month of studying grammar, I basically did not do any immersion for the first 20 days, and when I was in the middle of finishing the grammar guide, I basically went and did immersion, and I noticed that I didn't remember the grammar points that I studied 1 week ago. So you basically will not remember that thing when you go on the immersion, so don't do it. Literally, don't do it. I'm going to be saying the proper way of studying grammar in a minute, but bear with me first. At the end, grammar rules are words too. So if you're not understanding a word, what do you do with that word? You literally go and review that word after you see it a couple of times, not before. If you do it before, you're gonna spend too much time studying something that will literally not serve you in any way. If you do the contrary, most people will waste time. Yes, you want to study grammar isolated, that's fine. Go and study your grammar. You will see that there's a piece of grammar that you will literally not use for the first month. And when you notice that that piece of grammar, you don't use it for the first month because there's no way that you're understanding that piece of grammar in your YouTube video, in your anime, in your manga. Like, there's no way that you will be understanding that piece of grammar in a month. Why? Because there's nuance in situations. And even if you study the grammar guide perfectly, you will notice that there's no way that you're understanding that piece of grammar because you need to have some immersion hours for you to actually be able to understand the nuance and to understand that piece of grammar a month or 2 months from now. That's why you shouldn't study grammar. What to do with grammar points you don't understand? So I honestly can't say much more than keep doing immersion. I'm going to be talking about what immersion is, but honestly it's just watching videos, watching anime, watching dramas, whatever thing that you can do in the language, that's immersion. So first, just literally review that grammar point and keep doing immersion. That's it. So if you notice that that grammar point, it's literally annoying you a lot and you see it a lot of times, then yes, unless you want to review that grammar point and you skip the immersion. As easy as that. Now, how do you review words during immersion? There's two ways of doing this, which is basically installing two extensions in your browser. You can use Firefox, Chrome, whatever thing that you want, and basically these two extensions are called Yomitan and Migaku. Yomitan is free, Migaku is paid. So if you don't want to waste any time setting up anything, just pay for Migaku, and if you don't have the money, just go and literally search a tutorial on YouTube about how to set up Migaku for mining cards in Anki and reviewing words during your immersion. There's a tutorial in my Discord server about how to do this, and you will literally do everything that I'm saying to you in like 10 minutes. But if you don't want, you can literally just go to YouTube. It probably will just take a bit more of time because my guide is truly summarized, but if you don't want to go there, it's totally fine. What immersion is and how to properly do it. You probably have heard already of this term of doing immersion, so what the fuck is immersion? Immersion is the natural way in which we learn languages. You literally don't need to know more than that concept. Immersion is done through a method called comprehensible input. Input is literally doing whatever thing in the language that you're learning. It could be reading, listening, watching something, it doesn't matter. As long as you're inside of the language, you are doing input. Now, for this to actually be efficient, it needs to be comprehensible input. So in a very easy example, I will tell you the difference between input and comprehensible input. So if I say to you this very simple sentence, Mainichi jimuni kayatte, you will not understand anything, right? But now, if I say to you, Mainichi jimuni kayatte, while putting a picture of a guy going to a gym, you know that there's something in that sentence related to the gym. Basically, that's comprehensible input. How do you make something like a book comprehensible input? You don't have the audiovisual aspect, and that's why I don't recommend reading at the start, because to make reading comprehensible, you need to have at least 70, 80 or even 90% of comprehension just by knowing 5 out of 6 words in the sentence and having the knowledge of the context in the book. By doing these 3 things, you usually will be able to understand the meaning of the word you don't know. But this is not something to worry about for now, since it's literally way easier to understand context in anime or YouTube videos in which you have the audiovisual aspect. So you can watch the emotions of the characters or person in the video while also hearing them, which is really good when you want to just have as much comprehension as you want. Now, honestly, you can't just watch the anime episode if I'm being totally honest. It needs to be active study. Like, you can't watch the anime episode and just hope that you will learn the language in a month or 2 months from now while not doing anything. It needs to be active study. So if you see a word 3 times in 20 minutes, review that word. As easy as that. If you see a word in literally 3 minutes and that word was repeated like 10 times, review that word. It needs to be active study. You need to be paying attention to it. So there's lots of people that are multitasking while they do immersion, and they wonder why are they not getting the results that people get. Because motherfucker, you are eating ice cream while you do immersion. Of course you will not get the same results. Make sure that you don't eat ice cream, you don't eat anything, you literally don't do anything, just do immersion, pay attention to the thing. If you are not paying attention to what I'm saying right now, believe me, you will literally not understand anything and you will not get any results, and you will say, oh my god, this YouTuber is literally lying. He says that he learned 99% of comprehension in 18 months. Oh my god, he's lying so much. Brother, you are dumb. Please active study, not passive study. Studying vocabulary, this is literally probably the most important part of this guide, so make sure that you follow every step that I say perfectly. The first step is installing and setting up Anki. So I'm not going to make a tutorial like fuck you, search it on Google. There's literally 200 or 300 tutorials on YouTube, so search it on Google. Yes, I have made a tutorial which is in my Discord server, so if you want to go there, go there. The second step is PKText. So basically Anki is an open source software in which basically you have a flashcard system combined with a space repetition system, and basically this will help you to memorize all of the cards that you study on the deck, right? So make sure you pick a deck. Basically it can be whatever deck. Please don't overthink about what deck you're trying to pick. This is literally the most retarded question I've seen in a time. So if I'm being totally honest, like whenever I see a comment on YouTube saying, brother, what deck should I use in Anki? In the next 3 months, that person is going to probably be overthinking about studying Japanese. I know that for a a fact. The third step is make sure that you have the correct settings. So when I was studying Anki for the first 6 months, I didn't have the correct settings. And so this will basically make you spend too much time in Anki more than you actually need. I usually recommend studying like 30 to 40 minutes of Anki, not more than that, because Anki will not make you learn a language. Make sure that you literally insert that in your brain as much as you can. Anki will not make you learn a language. Anki will help you to learn a language quicker. That's how it works. The fourth step, and probably the most important one, is spending too much time in Anki cards. Make sure that you don't spend more than 2 to 3 seconds, even 4 seconds at max, in your Anki cards. I've seen people spending more than 10 seconds in their cards. What happens with this is that you're trying to study Anki too perfectly. And I'm going to be talking this in a bit, but like, when you study Anki in perfection, you will not remember all of the meaning that you studied on that word perfectly. Just study the gist of the card and then go and do immersion with that gist of the piece of vocabulary that you studied. Fifth step, prioritize quantity over quality. I know this can seem very contradictory, and in reality, there's lots of things that you can prioritize quality over quality. Anki is not one of them. In Anki, you need to have quantity over quality. So my argument for this is that if you study a word perfectly in Anki, you will basically not remember all of the meanings of that word when you go and do immersion. Why? Because you won't spend more than 2 seconds or 3 seconds on that card. A lot of people prioritize quality and they spend 10, 20 seconds on every card. And when you notice this, which is you go on the immersion and you literally don't spend more than 2 to 3 seconds in a card. So it doesn't make sense to spend more than 2 to 3 seconds per card, right? So make sure that you don't try to be perfect in Anki. You don't try to study everything perfectly. Literally, if you'd ask me this question, which is, do I prefer to study 100 cards in 30 minutes or do I prefer to study 50 cards in 30 minutes? I will say the 100 cards one. Why? I will study the gist of those 100 pieces of vocabulary and then I will go and do immersion after. And there's just way more chances that I will find all of the words that I studied that day. And basically, when you find that word in a scenario, there's a lot of chances that you will not find the meaning that you studied. So if you just get that gist of the word, it's totally fine. That's the only thing you need. Literally. Also, because the meaning of that word, even if you get the gist of the meaning of that word wrong, will get corrected over time. Because you will do immersion again and again and again. And even if you get the gist of the piece of vocabulary wrong in Anki, you can always go and review the word in your immersion. As simple as that. How will you get to really be consistent? This is not a step, this is just something that will help you a lot. So basically, I have literally never missed a day since June of 2024. So I think just a bit that yeah, I am consistent when it comes to studying Japanese. And the only piece of advice that I will give you here is, if you feel like you are not studying Anki that day, study. You are able to, because literally Anki, it's just 20 to 30 minutes of your day. There's no way that even if your mother died, you are not studying Anki that day. I know it sounds super horrible. It is what it is. You can imagine how much problems I've had since June when I started studying Anki, and still I kept studying Anki. I kept uploading the videos. I literally go to the gym now. I need to work 4 hours a day at least to help my family. So I think that honestly, you have much more time than you think. Something that can help you here too is seeing Anki as that part of your day in which you are going to be disciplined. So literally just for 20 to 30 minutes, you are going to be disciplined. It is not that difficult. 30 minutes, discipline, go and watch anime. That's it. Literally, it is not that difficult, believe me. I struggle to pay attention to my immersion. Brother, just resist that feeling for the first 1 or 2 months. Believe me, it works. So if you need accountability, just go to my Discord server. Literally, it's totally free. I'm doing a weekly call. We're checking on everyone's progress. Like literally, you'll get that result. It's just that, yeah, you have to resist the feeling of having 20 to 30% of comprehension. You will see people saying to you that you shouldn't be doing immersion and should study grammar more. Don't pay attention to them. So basically, whenever you notice a grammar point that you don't understand, go study the grammar point for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, keep doing immersion until you can understand that grammar point if it annoys you too much. This method is actually way more efficient and even fun at the start, because would you rather be studying grammar instead of watching anime or YouTube videos at the start? No, you wouldn't. You will prefer to actually watch anime or watch YouTube videos. Keep doing this because it's the method that works. Anyway, if you study grammar at the start, you will basically spend one entire month learning all of the pieces of grammar before doing immersion. In this way, you can basically learn all of the same things, but now doing it in a more fun way, which is watching YouTube videos, watching anime. I don't want you to waste 4 to 5 months of your time like I did. I literally could be speaking right now if I didn't waste 4 to 5 months of my time studying grammar and studying kanji isolated. So I don't want you to waste those 5 months, and I want you to speak and get that 99% of comprehension as soon as possible. So if you want to get those results too, follow everything that I'm saying on this guide. If you struggle with kanji recognition, do this. So write that kanji that you struggle with every time you say it. Don't worry about the stroke order of the kanji, don't worry about anything. Just basically literally write that kanji. Don't worry about the stroke order. Kanjis are literally derived from China, and people in China don't care about the stroke order. Literally, the stroke order is totally the contrary in Japanese. And still you can recognize the kanji when you see it in Chinese. Now you can do something else, which is remembering the kanji. In remembering the kanji, what you do is basically to study the kanjis isolated. Basically, this book helps you to write kanji and know the meanings of the kanji. Now, I don't recommend this book for normal people, so that is, you want to go to Japan, you want to talk in there. Why don't recommend this book? Because literally you don't need to write in Japan, right? If you just want to go there, not live in there, not work in there. Now, if you want to work in there, live in there, have a girlfriend in there, you want to live all of your life in Japan, maybe you want to even study in Japan, yes, do remember in the kanji, because I think that pretty much writing will be a necessity and you need to learn how to write. So remembering the kanji is probably the best book to learn how to write. Also, if you struggle with kanji recognition and you don't have at least 3 months in the language, never do this book. You don't want to waste 4 months of your time in this book like I did. If you really care about efficiency, you basically shouldn't read for the first 6 to 10 months of your language acquisition. I will say that you should read once you have a good basis on listening, so you don't have to go through the trouble of having to remove bad habits from speech or things of the like. Personally, I started reading at the month 12, but if you follow everything I say here perfectly and you do 4 to 5 hours of immersion daily, I think that in 8 to 10 months, you should be pretty much good to start reading. In terms of how much should you do it, it depends on you. Honestly, I read a lot right now. That's like 4 hours daily, but it's not really necessary to read that much hours. I will say that 2 hours is a pretty good amount as long as you're focusing more on listening. Listening is what I believe now the skill that will get you to fluency on top of speaking, so make sure you really prioritize it if your priority is speaking. Passive listening in itself is not good. I want you to remember that. When you think about it, passive listening is something you are doing passively and not actively. That means that you are not really paying attention to it, and of course, if you are not able to pay attention to it, it is not good at all and you shouldn't do it. Usually you have your passive listening in there because at some point you know that you'll be able to pay attention to it, and that's when it becomes active listening. This is the part in which it is actually an useful tool to help you become fluent in the language. You should only do passive listening at really trivial type of tasks, so that's cleaning your house, going to the gym, jogging, you get the point. It can be good when you want to take a break from immersion, so maybe you have done like 3 hours already in immersion and then you want to take a break, you want to clean your house, you want to cook some food, then you can actually take a break by doing passive listening. If you struggle sitting and paying attention to your immersion content, it is also good to do passive listening. Most people will always want to develop listening first before reading, since the majority usually care way more about the speaking than reading. So if you care more about the speaking, focus more your studies on listening. But if you want to develop reading first for some special reason, that's perfectly fine. Although it is a truth that people who focus more on reading rather than listening end up having a worse pronunciation in general. But it doesn't really have to be like that for sure. I will just be careful with it. What results can you expect? So, if you follow everything I say to you perfectly in this guide and just do the 6 hours daily since you start, you will get fluent in 1 year. It is just that simple. Now, of course, studying 6 hours daily since you start and doing 6 hours of immersion or 5 hours of immersion is very difficult. That is the truth. So, I'm guessing that 99% of people won't be able to do this because you are not me. I can perfectly get you to do this if you go to my link in the description. But you don't need to do this. You pretty much can do 2 to 3 hours of immersion for the first 3 months, and then you can increase that amount of immersion to 3 or 7 hours of immersion after those 3 months, which you pretty much will be able to do this. Why? Because now you have way more comprehension on the content that you're watching, and so it will be way easier. You can also do this, which is that after the first 6 months, you can start doing like 8 to 9 hours of immersion. So the more you advance into a language, the more hours of immersion you can do, the more easier it will get. And so yeah, that's more or less what you can expect. Now, if you just want to prioritize being conversationally fluent, maybe you shouldn't do this method, because this method also focuses on having a 99% comprehension in almost every piece of content that you will find yourself with in the language. And if you just want to prioritize conversational fluency, you shouldn't be doing reading. You should be doing literally just listening and speaking. Right now, I'm at the phase in which I need to output. Because of this, of course, I haven't started outputting yet. But I'm pretty much guessing that in 3 months, I'll be perfectly able to speak in the language. But yeah, I need 3 months to actually upload the guide on outputting, so you can actually wait for it, because I know for a fact that in 3 months, you won't get to output. That is just a fact. Check my Discord community at the first link in the description, and subscribe and leave a like if you want more people to know about this. Thank you.